Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe right now. This is absolutely huge. You will, in a couple of seconds, hear legal scholars talking about how Donald Trump has essentially won 2024. That every attempt to derail his campaign, to interfere in November, has been an unmitigated catastrophe and disaster for the Democratic Party. Hit subscribe right now. In a couple of seconds, you'll hear from former President Trump's lawyers, legal scholars, and the Supreme Court justices who gave him a huge immunity ruling, essentially giving him immunity, at least allowing the trial to go beyond November, when he can do away with it as president and dissolve the special counsel, because it was purely partisan. It was what authoritarians and totalitarians and despots do, trying to go after their direct political rivals. Okay, Trump was impeached over a phone call, an insignificant phone call. They've indicted him under 91 criminal charges, and none of these criminal charges will stick because they're all completely irrational, nonsensical. And the Georgia case is dissolving before our very eyes. We'll talk about that. The Florida case, the judge basically told the special counsel yet again they're not going to expedite any trial. He's a president with the power to declassify. And the D.C. case is pretty much done. The only thing they have is hush money, but then if you have congressional Republicans demanding information because it's an FEC, the FEC is part of the federal government. So they try to say that the FEC, he committed crimes pertaining to FEC laws. That's going to go out the window too. Basically, Trump is the Obi-Wan Kenobi of politics. The more they go after him, the more that they suffer, not him. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. In about 30, 40 seconds, I'll explain exactly why he's going to win, very likely in as close to a landslide as possible, okay? Number one, they wanted to convict him before November. That's not going to happen in D.C. That's not going to happen in Georgia. That's not going to happen in Florida. It could possibly take place in New York. But if congressional Republicans, like the Republicans did in Georgia, if congressional Republicans demand testimony from the New York prosecutors, that case will go under as well. He can go ahead now, like I explained today. Definitely hit subscribe and watch. In a couple of seconds, you will hear from former President Trump's lawyers and legal scholars on how huge this victory is. But he could, Samuel Stafford, Trump Kennedy. I love JFK, RFK Jr. I love JFK, RFK Jr. To my super chat, thank you, Paul Bartlett. My goodness, Paul, every single day in Australia, supporting this channel. Thank you, Samuel Stafford, supporting this channel always. Thank you, Samuel, and thank you, Paul and Nicholas and everybody here. I love RFK Jr. I think it's going to be Senator Tim Scott. And I think President Trump will pick Senator Tim Scott, who will be an amazing vice president and hopefully a future president. That's my hunch. That's my viewpoint. Samuel, thank you so very much. Samuel Stafford. Love RFK Jr., by the way. Samuel Stafford, thank you. I love Tulsi Gabbard. Love RFK Jr. Love Donald Trump. Love Rand Paul. Love Vivek Ramaswamy. Love anyone who wants to keep Americans home from never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts and military quagmires. And I love a great economy. I like record low poverty. Samuel and Paul and everyone here. Record low poverty. Record highs in household median income. Not interest rates that are double. Samuel and Paul and everyone here, thank you again. Double the interest rates for the mortgage rates. They're 7 to 8% now. Okay, you're paying double in the United States of America for your mortgage payment every month because of Bidenomics. And so basically, thank you again, Samuel and Paul. Basically, they tried to convict him. They wanted to make him a felon. And instead, now you have the impeachment that's going to take place of Biden. You had Hunter confirming the big man was Biden. You had Mitch McConnell leaving. You have the immunity case where they've essentially given Trump immunity because he has the right to perform a speech. The case in Georgia is completely dismantled. The case in Florida, because he's a president with the power to declassify, is going to go past 2024, and that'll be completely obsolete because he'll be president at that time. And so they can't stop the man, and unfortunately, the economy is getting worse. You have the market, like I said, is going to eventually tank. Gas prices going up, energy prices going up, interest rates still remaining high. That's the only thing bottling up inflation from going completely rampant. Samuel and Paul and Nicholas and everybody here, thank you. Let's get started. Hit subscribe right now. We're going to get to 300,000 subscribers, and it's because of you. Paul Bartlett, Nick and Nicholas, and Samuel Stafford, everyone here, to my super chat. And to my new viewers on this channel, thank you so much. God bless you. And thank you just for watching. And I'm honored that so many people now are enjoying this channel. Let's get started. Let's talk about this huge, huge victory. This is just yesterday.
The timing, let us start with the timing. Walk us through the chronology, what this is going to look like now that the Supreme Court has basically delayed this, and could this potentially delay it past the election as you see it?
This is a huge win for Team Trump, and it can't be overstated. So the Supreme Court is not hearing this until the end of April, which means a decision will not come from the Supreme Court until May or June. And June is when the court year usually closes. So let's assume it's June. At that point, the trial doesn't start the next day. It's not a shotgun start. I mean, they're going to have to file pretrial motions. They're going to have to marshal their witnesses and their evidence. They're going to have to pick a jury, which could take months to pick a jury in a case like that, assuming that the Supreme Court holds that there is no presidential criminal immunity claim for Trump. And so then the trial is already, the state's already said it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks. And so at that point, you are literally smack dab in the middle of election season, in the middle of conventions, where you have this hypothetical situation where the Republican nominee, I mean, I think we all know that absent something crazy happens, he's probably going to be the Republican nominee, is being tried by the opposing party's Department of Justice. I mean, it is a horrible, horrible look for the Department of Justice if it gets that far. And so there is a potential, of course, that, trials are not linear, as we're seeing now. The trial schedules are not linear. There is a potential that this goes past the general election. And then if Trump wins, then there might not be a prosecution at all.
Okay, so if the Supreme Court rules against former President Trump and decides that he can be tried for his actions on January 6th.
So this is exactly why MSNBC has The Fix is In. Okay? Samuel, Paul, everyone here. To my viewers in the Philippines, I love you. In Australia, New Zealand, in Canada, the UK, Nepal, Sweden, everywhere around the world, thank you for watching. The reason that MSNBC is writing that The Fix is In, which is absolutely hilarious, is because they wanted to make Trump a felon before November. They wanted to interfere and sway as many independent voters as possible, because they are the despots and authoritarians and totalitarians that they claim Trump is. It was an unmitigated disaster and catastrophe. They failed at that because they accused Trump not of a rebellion. They accused Trump, if you look at the indictment, and I've read the indictment from the special counsel in D.C., you can read the indictment for yourself. They're trying to criminalize a speech. They're trying to say that a speech, he ceased to become president. He was no longer president of the United States of America because he performed a speech. Do you understand how outlandish and completely irrational that is? They said that because he performed this speech and he tried to contest results through the law, by the way, through the courts, through his attorneys, and they're already, the Atlantic already published an article talking about how the Democrats are not going to abide by certification, which will also be amusing and hilarious. And tune in when Trump wins in November, and we have live streams with Democrats trying every possible way to stop him and doing exactly, probably even far worse than Trump ever did 4 years ago. Because Trump went through the courts, but the point is they tried to turn him into a felon to try to get the independent voters away from Trump. Okay? The Supreme Court is going to look at it because presidential immunity does extend to speeches. Okay? A break-in like Watergate is a break-in is a felony. There is no immunity that extends to breaking into a home or a business or a building. There is immunity that extends to a speech. And so they selectively edited the words within that speech. That's why MSNBC and CNN and the Washington Post and the Atlantic and Mother Jones and the Nation and Vox, and that's why they're upset, because they view Trump's speech to be the precursor or to be what compelled human beings he never met to commit crimes that day. But you had Democrats, and I agree with why people peacefully demonstrated that summer, but you had Democrats the summer before bailing out protesters and demonstrators. You had 10 to 14,000 arrests. You had billions in property damage. And I agree with why people peacefully demonstrated, but I didn't see any outrage from Kinzinger or Cheney or Democrats or the January Committee. So the fix is in. The Supreme Court is working with Trump. Now they want to do away with the Supreme Court. There goes norms and traditions. This is so hilarious. Let's continue. This is a wonderful legal scholar talking about this.
Then what? Can you play out the scenarios here, best and worst case for the former president?
Right. If they do decide, basically, if the Supreme Court takes this up, which it's going to, and says, you know what, we agree with the two lower courts who ruled on this, there is no blanket presidential criminal immunity, then Trump is in no different a position than he is now. Then basically this all just gets put back on the trial calendar, and then you could potentially see a trial right in the middle of election season. Now, if Biden wins, then, the general election, then that trial will proceed if there is no presidential immunity. But like I said, if Biden loses and Trump is the president, the DOJ is not going to prosecute a sitting president. And also, it'll then be Trump's DOJ. And we don't know what happens to the prosecution at that case. It might just completely fall apart.
When it becomes Trump's Justice Department and when Trump becomes leader of the executive branch, what will take place is that he can dissolve the special counsel. But as of right now, like the legal scholar that was just speaking talked about earlier, it's going to take a long time. The Supreme Court also does not want to be part of the 2024. They don't want to interfere in 2024. So they're going to take as long a time as possible, which will prolong this past November. This is a huge, huge victory. We're not even getting to, and hit subscribe if you're new to this channel right now. We're not even getting into the unanimous Supreme Court decision. They're already melting down in righteous indignation with this immunity decision. We haven't even gotten to overturning the Colorado ban. We haven't even gotten, ladies and gentlemen, and Samuel and Paul, thank you again. We haven't even gotten, ladies and gentlemen, to overturning the Colorado ban. That's going to be a unanimous decision, or at least a 7-2 decision. That will be a complete and utter rebuke of a really stupid and outlandish and unconstitutional and completely irrational decision to ban Trump. Yet again, the authoritarians and totalitarians and despots among the wonderful, morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats want to ban their political opponent. So what have Democrats done to Trump? They've tried to kick him off the ballot, which is what a despot and totalitarian does. They've tried to indict and convict him and imprison their direct political rival. That's not working either. They've tried to bankrupt him. That's not working. Now he can get loans in New York, and I explained that today. That was an important segment today, ladies and gentlemen. Hit subscribe and watch that one. Tough it out. Hello. John, hello to my members on this channel. Thank you. So that was an important, when he just won an appeals decision in New York. So that's huge also. But let's go ahead and continue with let's listen to President Trump's lawyers on this. And last month they made their case, essentially made their case to the Supreme Court. They weren't speaking directly to the Supreme Court. This is really, really interesting.
Good afternoon. I'd like to make some comments on behalf of President Trump. First of all, this was a momentous day. This is the first time in our nation's history that a sitting president has decided to prosecute his major opponent, who's leading in all the polls in the country. The issues that the court had to deal with today were momentous. Whether or not a president of the United States could be prosecuted for carrying out his responsibilities, doing his job as president. We can't have a country where every 4 years there's a cycle of political recrimination, where one administration attacks a prior administration, when in fact that candidate is leading in the polls and will be the next president of the United States. As our legal team, as our appellate team made clear, that would be a disaster for our country. That would be a direct attack on democracy, and that cannot happen. What was very significant today, and I'm sure you all caught it, is the special counsel conceded that if it was President Obama on strike, then they'd have. But when it's not, when it's President Trump, then they're taking the position that there's no immunity for presidential acts that were required when a president is carrying out his job responsibilities. If we adopt
So, according to the special counsel, President Obama is immune from, let's say, a military decision that can be viewed in a criminal manner, that can be accused, where he could be accused of committing a crime. Okay? Also, according to the special counsel, Trump, his speech was criminal. So the interesting thing is that Trump had every right to communicate to the United States, to the people of the United States, his constituents, the average American, what he felt was unfair. None of his claims, and I repeat, none of his claims, ladies and gentlemen, were given a special counsel to investigate. Why is that important? That's important because none of his claims were truly debunked. When you hear that in media, all of his claims were debunked, his claims were completely debunked. They were never debunked. There was, what happens, the word that they used, that word, is not what they think it means, okay? They think that Trump's claims in November 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, they think that they're the same. They're synonymous with the Loch Ness Monster or the Yeti or Bigfoot. That Trump is engaged in these fantasies and these theories, and that nothing he said was accurate, and he was proven wrong and completely refuted. Okay? Hey, guy, hello. The reality is there were so many bizarre anomalies and so many questions and so many irregularities, and whenever people on the ground or Trump or his lawyers or Giuliani or anyone actually raised questions, they were immediately refuted by local officials, by investigative journalists who had one political goal in mind, propping up the Democratic Party victory and making Trump look foolish. You had a woman mocked on Saturday Night Live. You had a whole bunch of experts ignored or marginalized. And even the answers trying to refute Trump's claims are filled with holes. And so initially, what they did was Trump made a claim. There was no direct evidence. The anomaly, the bizarre, it would be the equivalent of you park your car at work. Your car then is no longer there when you finish work. Then you see a coworker driving your car the next week. Do you know that you don't know your coworker stole the car? The bizarre occurrence, along with the coworker eventually driving the car that you used to have, that you parked at work, leads to a million questions. What took place was Democrats didn't ask any of those questions, nor did they care. Journalists did not care. Everyone was mocked and denigrated. And there was no Federal Bureau of Investigation involvement. There were no special counsels. Nobody was sent to testify to Congress. In Arizona, for example, you had a tech company. That tech company had a whole bunch of questions, major questions, that were never truly answered, even after articles were written saying that the tech company failed. And so you have endless lies by omission and a political objective. Did Trump have direct evidence that the election was stolen? No. Did Trump ever get any of his claims investigated, truly investigated in the manner that Democrats investigated the Mueller probe? No. None of his claims were truly investigated with the full weight of the United States government, because the United States government did not want, nor did Democrats, nor did media, nor did Saturday Night Live want any of his claims truly investigated. So it's true, Trump did not have direct evidence. But they didn't have any evidence aside from a Steele dossier and a bunch of failed intelligence reports, completely made up, saying that, we believe that Trump was a Kremlin operative. And they investigated forever. And they found that their theories were 100% wrong. Okay, Trump didn't get that benefit of the doubt. Trump didn't get that benefit of the doubt. That's what people don't understand. And look, he wasn't going to be able to get that type of investigation within the time frame. Okay, there should have been an emphasis on trying to get people under testimony, under oath, and there wasn't. Anyway, let's continue.
What the special counsel wants, if we adopt what President Biden wants, then we open the Pandora's box to political prosecution after political prosecution after political prosecution. In fact, Joe Biden could be prosecuted for trying to stop this man from becoming the next president of the United States. We don't need political prosecutions, we need political process. I'd like to introduce President Trump.
Well, I want to thank you all, and we had a very momentous day in terms of what was learned and what they've conceded. They conceded two major points that were right in doing it. I don't think they had much of a choice, but they're very, very big, very powerful points. And I think we're doing very well. I think it's very unfair when a political opponent, is prosecuted by the DOJ, by Biden's DOJ. So they're losing in every poll. They're losing in almost every demographic. Numbers came out today that are really very mind-boggling if you happen to be Joe Biden. And I think they feel this is the way they're going to try and win. And that's not the way it goes. That'll be bedlam in the country. It's a very bad thing. It's a very bad precedent. As we said, it's the opening of a Pandora's box, and it's a very sad thing that's happened with this whole situation. When they talk about threat to democracy, that's your real threat to democracy. And I feel that as a president, you have to have immunity. Very simple. And if you don't, as an example, if this case were lost on immunity, and I did nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong. I'm working for the country, and I worked on very hard.
So, and Carl, thank you. Shabbat Shalom, thank you. And thank you, everybody. Tough it out, thank you. So, you look, ladies and gentlemen, the immunity does not extend to an actual crime. You can't just simply accuse Trump of something he didn't do and say, well, he committed a criminal act because he signed a bill, or he performed a speech, or he was driving in a motorcade, or whatever a president does, and then link that to criminal behavior of people he never met. Sorry, ain't gonna work. Ain't gonna work, Democrats. You tried and failed, like you usually try and fail. And you think Biden is winning? Okay. You got 4 years. We're going back to Trump because you've been miserable failures in the Oval Office. So the country and the world is completely, engulfed in quagmire after, problem, and the economy is on thin ice. The world is, the problems we didn't have with Trump. We can go on forever with that. So you've won nothing other than political power, which will all be any political power Democrats have gained, for the most part, will be reversed with 4 more years of Trump. So you've really gained nothing. You've made Trump and his movement, which focuses on record low poverty and peace throughout the world. We had a great deal more peace than the endless military involvements we have around the world now with Trump. So you've only strengthened Trump's movement, a new populist conservative movement that focuses on wealth, record low poverty, record highs in household median income. See, these are the things that Democrats ignore. They think people vote for Trump because of his personality. His personality is, he's awesome. He's hilarious. He's going up against the entire global media establishment, American political establishment, media throughout the world, not just in the U.S., and he's winning. So that's pretty amazing. It's admirable. But people voted for Trump, and they're voting for Trump because we had a great economy. What is wrong with that? What is wrong with wanting a great economy and a great foreign policy? So, but they're upset. Democrats are livid, as always. They're outraged, as always. If they don't get their way exactly, they want to do away with the okay, these are the people who say democracy is on the ballot. Now they want to do away with the Supreme Court. They're insulting. You have Hollywood celebrities insulting the Supreme Court using profanity. It's hilarious. Then they say Trump is boorish and he's not presidential. And these are the same people, if they don't get their way, wonderful, morally superior liberal Democrats, if they don't get their way, it's like the end of the world, because politics is like a religion to them. Okay, it's fine. I love Christopher Hitchens, even though I believe in God, and then, I believe there's an afterlife, and I believe that your actions on earth, influence your afterlife. But I talk about that in my novels. I have 2 novels, Breaking the Devil's Heart and Logic of Demons. You can go ahead and purchase them on my website, hagoodman.com. They're also on Amazon. But, ladies and gentlemen, Democrats, morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats, generally are atheists. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in religion. And so their religion is MSNBC and CNN, The Atlantic, and Mother Jones, and The Nation, and The Washington Post, and The New York Times. And their religion is social acceptance and the consensus of experts who agree with them. But if you have experts that don't agree with them, they're controversial, they should never have been born, these are bad experts, in fact, they're not really experts, they're horrible people, you know what, they used to be experts, but now they're too controversial and polarizing to be called experts, and their consensus means nothing anyway, because our experts, our liberal experts who have a liberal consensus on things, that expertise really counts. So, anyway, they're upset with the Supreme Court. They want to pack the Supreme Court. They want to put 557 new Supreme Court justices who are liberal to make sure that Trump doesn't take over the country forever. And then they don't realize that Republicans will then add the same amount with an odd number of, or even number to make it odd, of Supreme Court justices. They don't realize that we'll have like 55,003 Supreme Court justices eventually because liberal Democrats think they could pack the courts. So it's really hilarious. Anyway, this is so huge. It's such a huge victory for Trump in every way, shape, and form. Let's go ahead and UC Berkeley Law Professor John Yoo. Conservative, worked in the Bush administration, talking about the failed attempts by Democrats of going after Trump in the criminal trials that are just being dismantled before our very eyes.
I always love having you on. John, always good to see you. The Supreme Court's moved to hear oral arguments on the former president's claim of having immunity from prosecution. If you're not even going to get to oral arguments until then, and this was a case that was supposed to start like soon, you can see it put off quite some time, maybe until after the election, or could you?
President Trump may have successfully here deflected the main threat from all these criminal trials, because the case you're talking about, Neil, is the January 6th case against President Trump for essentially committing insurrection, although the special prosecutor, Jack Smith, didn't charge him with that. As you said, the court has now scheduled arguments for April 22nd, the week of that. That means the decision won't come out till the end of June at the latest, and then I think you get a trial, if you're lucky, starting in August.
So what happened, John? There's a number of other trials. The Atlanta one, with the whole thing going on with the prosecutor and a relationship with another prosecutor. That's a mess. But that also could see her, Fannie Willis, getting thrown out, if not the entire case dropped and starting again. I mean, what does your gut tell you there?
This is an important difference between the federal trial we were just talking about and the Fannie Willis Georgia trial. That's a state case. So if Donald Trump can get the actual federal case delayed and then perhaps wins the presidency, he actually has the power to order the Justice Department to drop that prosecution, and that's over. The Georgia case is completely outside President Trump's powers if he should he be president. It's a state case. He can't even pardon himself for it, which he could for a federal case. But that case seems to be imploding. We've talked about the problems that Fannie Willis has had. It does seem like there was a conflict of interest now that developed in the development of the indictment. I could easily see that case getting transferred to someone else entirely, a different prosecutor in Georgia. And then why would another DA want this terrible, terrible disaster of a case on his or her hands? I could see them dropping that case too. Those are the two biggest challenges to President Trump coming out of the criminal justice system, and they both may well disappear.
So the big issue also, ladies and gentlemen, is that they're going to hear the immunity case. Okay? They're going to hear the immunity case. They're going to hear the immunity case because he did not, Trump did not actually commit a specific crime. He's being indicted in D.C., the special counsel, because the January committee and media selectively edited video that showed endless. Oh, here we go. Hold on. How is it now? Better? Ladies and gentlemen, better? Better? Is the audio better, ladies and gentlemen? How is the audio? Okay, great. Okay, so thank you. So what's taking place, the secret spaceship. Thanks, AJ, you're a good journal, a good man. Thank you, the secret spaceship. Thank you. Okay, awesome. Samuel Stafford, the secret spaceship. Paul Bartlett, as always. Nicholas, everybody here, thank you. All right, so, Truffles, hello. So, here's the issue. Not only are they going to decide on immunity, which prolongs, Angie, hello, Shabbat Shalom, thank you so much. Not only does, Led, hello, not only does the Supreme Court prolong the special counsel case to where it will go past Paul Bartlett, thank you. My goodness, thank you so much again. My God. Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. Secret Spaceship, Paul Bartlett, Samuel Stafford, thank you so much. Thank you again. So not only does the Supreme Court prolong the case, they wanted desperately to convict Trump. Oh my God, they wanted to convict Trump so badly. The sense of entitlement from these despotic, authoritarian, wonderful, morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats is really amusing. The sense of entitlement, the arrogance, the hubris, the inability to see what everyone sees. Okay, you're going after your direct political rival. You're indicting him on things based on liberal sensibilities. He didn't foment a rebellion. His speech simply pointed out an endless list of irregularities and the fact that he did not trust Democrats or media, which most people don't anyway. And so then people who had nothing to do with Trump committed criminal acts. Those criminal acts had zero to do with Trump's speech, just like the billions in property damage, and I agree with why people peacefully demonstrated the summer prior. Just like, according to Democrats, billions in property damage had nothing to do with their words, and according to Chuck Schumer and Democrats, a man trying to take the life of a Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh, okay, had nothing to do with when Schumer literally targeted a Supreme Court justice and threatened him in a speech. Okay, so Schumer made a specific reference stating, really vile and, terrible things. And then a man trying to take the life of a Supreme Court justice. Nobody on the Democratic Party side puts two and two together there. Nobody says, oh, your words caused somebody to try to take the life of a justice. Okay, so a lot of the speeches and rhetoric and words of Democratic Party politicians precede criminal behavior. but they never accuse Democrats of fomenting or inciting criminal behavior. It's only with Trump. And then you have Vivek Ramaswamy with his viewpoint. No, certainly not mine. Certainly not mine. I would never, no. Never. I would never think that there was involvement from you-know-who. Never. But Vivek Ramaswamy has stated categorically that he thinks certain things took place that were totalitarian that day. So you have a whole bunch of issues. They tried desperately to destroy Trump, but they're the ones losing. And it's pretty unbelievable, too. Never before has a political side in the United States of America had so much influence and power, only to squander all of it in the most petulant, malicious, sad, miserably failed attempt at trying to destroy somebody. You would think if you devoted your entire life for 7 to 8 years trying so hard and desperately to ruin Trump that eventually he'd be ruined. He gets stronger. The man cannot be, not only Teflon, like the man can't be touched. It's like the Roy Jones, great one of the great boxers of all time, his "Can't Be Touched," that song. The man can't be touched. So, let's continue. All right, let's go ahead. Let's listen to Samuel Alito. So this will be when they rule 9-0. Oh my God, the unanimous ruling. If they're upset now, wait till the unanimous ruling. Be here on this channel too. I've been telling you for a long time. Everything that I've been saying has been proven to be right. Hit subscribe. Go compare. You can look at my analysis. Yeah, it's obviously pro-Trump, but I've been right. The people saying Trump's on the ropes, he's on the ropes, the walls are closing in, the walls are closing in, the walls are closing in on Trump. They've been wrong. And wait till the 9-0 decision. It'll be amazing. Check this out.
Justice Alito?
Suppose there's a country that proclaims again and again and again that the United States is its biggest enemy, and suppose that the President of the United States, for diplomatic reasons, think that it's in the best interests of the United States to provide funds or release funds so that they can be used by that country. Could a state determine that that person has given aid and comfort to the enemy and therefore keep that person off the ballot?
No, Your Honor. This court has never interpreted the aid and comfort language, which also is present in the treason clause. But commentators have suggested it's been rarely applied because treason prosecutions are so rare. But commentators have suggested that, first of all, that aid and comfort really only applies in the context of a declared war, or at least an adversarial relationship where there is, in fact, a war between two countries. And second, the intent standard would do a lot of work there, because under Section 3, whatever the underlying conduct is, engaging in insurrection or aid and comfort has to be done with the intent to further the unlawful purpose of the insurrection or to aid the enemies in their pursuit of war against the United States.
Now, let me come back to the question of what we would do if different states had adjudicated the question of whether former President Trump is an insurrectionist using a different record, different rulings on the admissibility of evidence, perhaps different standards of proof. Then what would we do?
Ultimately, this court would, first of all, if there were deficiencies in the record, the court could either refuse to hear the case or it could decide on the basis of deficiencies of the record.
Well, would we have to decide what is the appropriate rule of evidence that should be applied in this case? Would we have to decide what is the appropriate standard of proof? Would we give any deference to these findings by state court judges, some of whom may be elected? Would we have to have our own trial?
No, Your Honor. This court takes the evidentiary record as it's given, and here we have an evidentiary record that all the parties agree is sufficient for a decision in this case. And then, as I discussed earlier, there's a possibility of a Bose Corp independent review of the facts. But ultimately, what we have here is an insurrection that was incited in plain sight.
But you're really not answering my question. It's not helpful if you don't do that. Suppose we have two different records, two different bodies of evidence, two different rulings on questions of admissibility, two different standards of proof, two different sets of fact findings by two different judges, or maybe multiple judges in multiple states. Then what do we do?
Well, first, this court would set the legal standard, and then it would decide which view of the record was correct, I think, under that. If this court had two cases,
which view of what record? Which record?
If this court had two cases before it, and both of the records were sufficient insofar as both sides had the opportunity to present their case and the essential facts in the record that everyone agreed was sufficient for decision, then this court would have to look at the evidence presented and decide which holding was correct, and then decide that issue for the country. And certainly here, when there is a complete record, lower courts then will be applying that decision, and I think it's unlikely that any court would say, we're going to reach a different decision than the U.S. Supreme Court did, particularly if the court relies on the facts, the indisputable facts of what President Trump said on video and in his Twitter feed, which is
He literally told people to peacefully march and patriotically. The problem is that not only is the evidentiary record disputed, nobody on Trump's side believes he fomented a rebellion. That's absurd. Trump doesn't, his lawyers don't even concede that the speech itself was egregious in any way, because it wasn't. So the evidentiary record is contested by Trump's team, number one. Number two, the lawyer for Colorado is not answering the question. He was not convicted of a rebellion. He was not convicted of inciting or compelling people to commit crimes. So then how do you, I don't want to sneeze. How do you come to the conclusion as a Colorado Supreme Court that a man who hasn't been convicted of a rebellion tried to foment a rebellion? Because the entire world sees Trump's speech for what it says. And he also tweeted, and he also told people to remain calm, peaceful, to follow directions. And he was against any, that day, the day after that, he was against any chaos and mayhem. It was Democrats that made the absurd, stupid, outlandish, completely illogical, and irrational leap of logic that said that because he performed a speech and he didn't trust the Democratic Party and media, therefore, he created the chaos. No, he didn't. Most of the country doesn't trust Democrats. Most of the country doesn't trust media. Look at poll after poll. Public sentiment is against the media. The average American does not trust media because they believe that everyone is a liberal Democrat and lying by omission, which is the truth. You only have liberal Democrats lying by omission in media, trying desperately to paint the world from the vantage point of a liberal Democrat. So you have a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where it's like you have a situation where they've tried to, the Supreme Court very soon, you'll see, is if they think the fix is in with the immunity case, you just watch the completely apoplectic, hysterical, hilarious, just the meltdown of biblical proportions, the same Bible that Democrats don't believe in, when it's a 9-0 Supreme Court ruling They're going to overturn the Colorado ban. They're going to take their sweet time with immunity because Trump performed a speech. He wasn't on horseback trying to take over the country. Like the way they think, the way Democrats think is like Trump is like on horseback and Giuliani and like Bannon, they're all behind him. And then, and they're like, oh my God, it's the Trumpists. They're trying to take over democracy. Save us, Saturday Night Live. Save us, Hollywood. And so in their minds, they think that Trump tried to stay there forever and undo a democratic fabric. And the opposite is true. He performed a speech, and according to Vivek Ramaswamy and others, really bizarre anomalies took place that day that had nothing to do with Trump. So, anyway, get ready, ladies and gentlemen, for the overturning of the Colorado ban, which will be absolutely hilarious. Be here tomorrow. I should have a live stream at around 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. And what can I tell you other than hit subscribe? Thank you so much. My God, Samuel Stafford and Paul Bartlett and Secret Spaceship and everybody here, thank you so very, very, very much. To my viewers around the world, in the Philippines, in the UK, in Canada, in Australia, in New Zealand, Nepal, Sweden, everywhere around the world, thank you so very much for watching. And of course, in the US, thank you. I love you all. And be here tomorrow. Hit subscribe. We're going to get to 300,000 subs by November, ladies and gentlemen. And it's going to be pretty amazing. Anyway, hit subscribe.